What's happening? Top of the morning to you. Wherever y'all at. What's going on with y'all? Can you make your presence known? I was gonna discuss trying to see if before I got started, you know. I don't know if any of y'all ever heard of Manly P. Hall. Can y'all hear me? Somebody. The chat working? Somebody type something down there. All right, thank you. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of Manly P. Hall, right? Manly P. Hall is a spiritualist, right? He talks about a lot of esoteric knowledge. And I was listening to one of his talks. And his talk was about how emotions can contribute to spiritual growth. Right? It's an hour and a half talk. About how emotions can contribute to spiritual growth. What's up, Amir? What's going on with you, right? And so, in that conversation, in that lecture he had, he brought up a few thoughts and stuff, which spurred a few thoughts of my own. Let me give you a little taste of Manly.
Man suddenly coming to experience through feeling his relationship with life. One of our troubles seems to be that we have never yet found an adequate pattern for educating emotions. The mind we can educate. We seem to have a certain skill in bestowing upon it formalized concepts and precepts. But emotions are things that are so elusive, so intense, and so dynamic, and in a measure so strangely personal and individual, that we have never yet been able to completely standardize a system of education applicable to them. What we seem to require at this stage of the growth of the individual is a very heavy dependency upon example and upon providing the emotions with constructive experiences and opportunities. We naturally desire to experience emotionally all things as good or beautiful. Left entirely to its own devices, emotion dramatizes. Emotion provides strange auras of bright light around commonplace objects and persons and situations.
Thank you for the light.
Emotions.
All right. So in this lecture with Manly, There's a old Cherokee. There's an old Cherokee saying, and it's an old Cherokee story. It's the story of the two wolves, right? Um, and the story goes, everyone has two wolves inside of them fighting each other. There's a white wolf and a black wolf, and they're in a battle. And the question is, which wolf wins? And the answer is the one you feed. All right. So one of them got to win. In the way the Cherokees put it, one of them got to win. So which one wins? The one who you feed. So if you feed the white wolf gonna win. If you feed the black wolf gonna win, because it has the strength. The other one's gonna be malnourished, right? And so the little twist, that I put on it would be which means one of them has to die, right? So the Native American parable of the two wolves fighting within us, one representing darkness, the other one light, typically concludes with the teaching that the wolf you feed is the one that wins. Well, the thought is a powerful thought. It's kind of simplistic, and they miss a deeper truth about human emotional development. What if authentic growth requires not the victory of one wolf, but learning how to get both of them to survive? Now, I played y'all Manly, right? And in Manly's lecture on emotions, said that emotions provide a sophisticated framework for understanding why most people struggle with emotional maturity, and offers a pathway toward what might be called emotional alchemy. The transformation of raw emotional energy into wisdom and character. Now, when combined with a more nuanced interpretation of the two wolves teaching from the Cherokees, Hall's insights reveal both the necessity and the method of feeding both our shadow and light aspects in service of genuine growth. So does growth require learning how to navigate both? All right. Manly, he put forth the idea of society has a crisis. And the crisis that society has is emotional illiteracy. Emotional illiteracy. What y'all think about that word? Any thoughts with that word? Emotional illiteracy? We talk about an educational gap between education, not education of like math and sciences and stuff, but education of emotions. Manly, he identifies a fundamental development within human society that we develop sophisticated ways of training the mind, but emotional education remains largely neglected. So we got all these schools and universities and all that to train the mind, but we don't have no schools or no to for training of emotions. And we seem to have certain skills in bestowing upon it, which is the mind, formalized concepts. Manley also observes that emotions are not things that are so elusive, so intense, and so dynamic that we have never yet been able to completely standardize a system of education applicable to them. This educational that gap creates what Manley describes as a very bad break in a foundation upon which mature life is built. Mature life is built. Individuals develop adequate physical and mental capacities, but people enter adulthood, all right, with sophisticated mindsets, but underdeveloped emotional capabilities. All right. Manley says one of the arguments he puts forward is the loss of structures that taught emotional education during adolescence, right? He argues that like the religious frameworks that we had set up once provided directive structure necessary for emotional development. During adolescence, when emotional, he says during adolescence, which would be 13 to 20, that's when our emotional intensity peaks. And religious communities offer a clear set of code of conduct that help individuals with emotional controls alongside with meaningful outlets of emotional energy through worship and ritual. So some of the trials and hey, you got to go through this trial to be enter into manhood. All of those things he's saying he was Manley's putting forward. All of those things helped in between those ages 13 to 20 to help develop emotional intelligence. That's what he's putting forward. And then he's saying if you look with the decline, we could look with all this religion stuff, all you got to do is pass in front of a church or whatever. All of these groups is in decline, right? And so, and if you look around, the decline of all of these frameworks, which at once helped the community, it provided outlets for the emotional energy, right? You know how they always have these church gatherings and church functions and shit like that, and doing different things. All of that provided frameworks and outlets for this emotional energy release, right? And in the modern times, with the decline of all these institutions, individuals are faced with emotional awakening with inadequate guidance. This is what Hall is. If you listen to the lecture, you will hear him talk about all of this stuff, right? I'm just saving you an hour and a half in a way. But also, so with the loss of religious leaders, Manley says man's emotional life has lost nearly all its directives. Man's emotional life has nearly lost all of its directives. By the way, I'm not saying you got to agree with this. I'm just presenting, like I said, just presenting what Manley was talking about. Some of the stuff he was putting forward. All right. He also said that we have come finally to take the attitude that we must simply express, reveal, and follow the pressure and tendencies without directive and without repression of any kind. He also put forward that we have a lazy approach to emotions. Hall Manley also put forward that particularly destructive, that's particularly what's destroying this culture. All right. Because if you look at the media and all of that, we're constantly stimulated by negative stimuli, negative emotional stuff. Watch the news. Hey, this happened, that happened. All right. And so what we have is a society of emotional chaos masquerading itself as emotional freedom. The mind emotion war. One of the most important, or one of the more insights that really made me think that he put forward concerned destructive relationships that develop between undisciplined emotions and rational thought. What undisciplined emotions can do to rational thought. And rather than working in harmony with the mind and the emotions, begin to sabotage each other. The mind and the emotions start to sabotage each other. The mind starts to support the worst part of the emotion, the body. And emotions interferes with the best part of the mind's thinking. Did y'all catch that? Did y'all catch that? The mind starts to support the worst part of the emotion. So if you're not, what does that mean? It can mean, hey, if you're emotionally in a negative place, the mind starts supporting that. But then also, if you stuck in that, then that space also starts interfering with rational thought. And it creates a vicious cycle where rational faculties, oh shit, are enlisted to justify emotional dysfunction. It creates a vicious cycle where your rational facilities are enlisted to start justifying the emotional dysfunction. While emotional immaturity undermines sound judgment. So you could be the most sound, logical person in the world, but if you are emotionally immature, that should have canceled all that shit out. It don't make a difference how logical you are if the emotional maturity is running the show. Manley also puts forward that individuals lose the courage to defend their better thoughts and lack the mental integration to support constructive emotional resolution. What does that mean? What does that really mean? I'll repeat it. People have lost the courage to defend their better judgment, their better thoughts. So if you have a thought and it's better and somebody is giving you pushback with lack of courage, you will go against that better thought you had. Right? And if you lack the mental integration to support constructive resolution, what does that mean? When you feel some type of way, if you haven't done work, you may not know how to emotionally get yourself out of that situation and find a resolution. What does that mean? You know that person that's really, really good with identifying the problem. But you know what that person never identifies? A solution to said problem. Holler if you hear me. Type of 1 in the chat if you know anybody like that they're really good with telling you all the problems, but when you put forth a solution, crickets. They probably tell you, probably good at telling you why that idea won't work. Oh shit. Yep. Hey, hold up. Man, I can't see. Oh yeah. By the way, my bad. I ain't know. My chat ain't working. No, so Kiki, what's happening? J Kid Gamer, what's happening? Nene. My bad. Well, I got it over here now. Now I can see. My bad, y'all. So I wasn't ignoring anybody. my chat right here is not working. So uh, uh, I'm with y'all now. I'm with y'all now. So I will respond. I can see now, y'all. I wasn't ignoring you. All right. So, all right. Where was I? All right. Now, you remember how did I start it? I started off talking about the story of the two wolves. And that beat ain't too loud, huh? The beat ain't too loud, huh? Um, the beat ain't too loud, is it? All right. Um, I started off with the story of the two wolves, and I told you that the story of the two wolves, it the ending of it is, you gotta feed one of the wolves, right? And so I was I basically was reframing that story, right? Traditionally, the two wolves story, while psychologically, you know, astute and recognizing internal conflicts, we may inadvertently reinforce the very mind emotion split that Hall identifies as problematic. If we understand the dark wolf as representing difficult emotions like anger, fear, grief, rage, right? And we look at the light wolf as representing the noble qualities inside of us, compassion, hope, and courage, right? Then attempting to starve one wolf creates the same kind of internal civil war that Manly Hall was actually talking about within that video, right? That he's describing. Now, what I like to put forth is a more sophisticated interpretation and recognizing that both wolves serve essential functions in human development. The dark wolf carries crucial information. What? The dark wolf carries crucial information? I thought you said the dark wolf represents anger, fear, grief, and rage. Yes, I did. But the dark wolf also gives you information about boundaries, threats, and losses that require your attention. Boundaries. Wait. Wait, we talk about boundaries all the time and stuff like that. So, wait, if does that mean if you are running away from or don't want to embrace the dark wolf inside you, in all actuality, you are taking away your ability for boundary recognition and boundary protection, recognition of actual threats? You sure you don't want to lean into that dark wolf? These emotions, the dark wolf emotions, when properly understood and channeled, become sources of strength and wisdom. Anger can fuel the fight for justice. Fear can provide necessary caution. Grief can deepen empathy and appreciation for life's preciousness. Similarly, it's interesting. What fuck could I just say? It's interesting what I'm talking about. This whole wolf story. I know someone would actually really like this conversation. Too bad. Anyway, similarly, the light wolf's qualities, when unbalanced by their shadow, can become problematic. What? The light can become problematic? Yeah. Hey, what's that mean? If you just feeding the light wolf, that could turn into a problem for you. What do you think? Unchecked compassion can lead to enabling behavior. Oh yeah, you want to be compassionate with people, but then at what point does it turn into enabling? Only trying to feed the white wolf can lead to naive optimism, can result in poor judgment. What? Just leaning into light energy can lead to poor judgment. Naive optimism can result in poor judgment. Excessive agreeableness can mask authentic selfhood. Now, the question then becomes not which wolf to feed, but how to feed both wolves consciously. This requires what, Manly put forward, emotional education. In the chat, y'all in the chat, what y'all think about that word? Emotional education. When I'm saying emotional education, what do y'all, what's, any thoughts? I can see the chat now. I can say something. Emotional education. Any thoughts on that word, emotional education? Hey, Brenda. Hey, how you doing? I get that. I use my anger by the way the homeless are treated in my area and my compassion on their plight to fight for, help them. Huh. Now, just to play devil's advocate, Brenda, is some of the homeless, at some of them, maybe one, starting to try to take advantage of your compassion? That's what we would have to watch for. Thank you for coming. All right. Basically, I'm talking about. Interesting that this is the one that you caught. Because I'm talking about a Cherokee parable, the story of the two wolves, which one, the black wolf and the white wolf. And I know you have Native American heritage. Right? So, yeah, interesting. So, like I was saying, I was asking y'all what y'all think about the word uh, emotional education, right? The systematic cultivation of emotional intelligence through exposure. Now, what Manley puts forward, right, is that one of the ways that we work on emotional intelligence is through exposure to beauty, meaning, and transcendent values. Huh? We got to lean into art and beautiful things and meaning. That's the way to work on emotional your emotions. Does that make sense to y'all? Art? Right? Manley puts forward, he draws that he's pulling from the Greek philosophy traditions. The Greeks decided from the very beginning that emotions must be fed exactly like the mind has to be fed. You got to feed your emotions like you feed your mind. Huh? If you do not provide information to the mind, it cannot function. If you provide the mind with false information, it will arrive at false conclusions. Just as the mind requires quality information to function well, emotions require quality experiences to mature. Manly Hall puts forth that art, like I said, art, visual arts, literature, agriculture, architecture as proper curriculum for emotional development. These cultural achievements represent much more than merely a wide area of knickknacks. The arts, in his view, both represent heritage of man in aesthetics and means and the means or methods for training the aesthetic instincts of a person. Now, y'all might want to get your pen and paper out for this. All right. Now, to work on to do something about your emotional state requires growth. Growth. Now, how do you spell growth? Groth. Growth. Now, this is where, yes. Now, well, now I made an acronym for growth. All right. So the first letter in growth is G, right? The process of emotional integration can be structured around this word, this acronym growth, which provide, and I'm about to provide you a framework for active work. Let me repeat myself. Active work that authentic development requires. active work. Now, the G is for grounding. G is for grounding, right? Grounding involves learning to stay present with emotional intensity without being overwhelmed by it. The capacity allows individuals to experience both difficult and pleasant emotions without being hijacked by them. Manly Hall notes emotions cannot be merely dogmatically instructed. They require patience, presence, and attention. Patience, presence, and attention. Grounding. Now, the next letter in the word growth is R. What do y'all think the R may stand for? What would y'all do with the R? I'm gonna tell you what I did with it, but I'm wondering where y'all going. So we went from grounding, now got R. What do you think R is? Paging R once. Go ahead. Go ahead. R is for reflection. Reflection. So we got grounding and we got reflection. GR. Reflecting transforms emotional reactivity into, here's a big word, self-awareness. You ever heard that someone is hyperactive? You're very hyperreactive. So learning how to reflect and grounding, reflection, transform emotional reactivity into self-awareness. And we talk about how a lot of individuals lack self-awareness. This involves examining patterns of emotional response and understanding their origins. Yeah, you responded that way, you felt that way, that made you feel that way, but why? Why? It wasn't that person. Yeah, that's what popped up that made you feel that way, but what's the essence of that? What's the core of that? Where did that come from? Manly Hall emphasizes that emotions often carry information about our deepest values and needs. But this information can only be accessed through reflective engagement. So you ever talk to that person and they be like, I really don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. The reason you don't know what you want is because you lack of reflecting. Lack of engaging with your emotional body. Now, the next letter in growth is an O. What is O for? Openness. Openness. Openness requires dropping the defensive patterns that keep us from learning from our emotional experiences. Many people, Manly Hall observed, uses emotions as strange kinds of melancholy satisfaction in suffering unjustly rather than as opportunities for growth and understanding. Meaning, some people just like sitting in the pain and suffering. Some people just like that space. But that's not what those events and things were meant for. Things that happen to you and events and stuff like that is meant to teach you something for growth. But if you're not doing the reflecting, you can't extract that lesson. Especially if you're not open to hearing different perspectives, it's only your perspective of said event. You might be seeing it wrong. The W stands for wisdom seeking. So we got grounding, reflection, openness. The W in growth is wisdom seeking. Wisdom seeking involves extracting the deeper lessons embedded in emotional experiences. Every emotional reaction contains potential teachings about ourselves and our relationship to life. But accessing this wisdom requires what Hall calls great thought and great carefulness. Great thought and great carefulness is required to access the deeper wisdom of emotional experiences that we have in our lives. And to access the greater teachings, right? To access the great thought and be great carefulness, number one, you got to be seeking the wisdom, actually want to learn, being open, be willing to reflect, and the first thing is that you got to ground yourself. Hey, everything moving too fast. I need grounding. I need to ground myself. Then we move on to the T. I'm pretty sure y'all know what T is about. And it's not tamales. It's not tomatoes. It's not tulips. It's transformation. Transformation occurs when insights gained through emotional work are to be integrated into changed behavior and expanded consciousness. This is where the two wolves Remember, I keep talking about two wolves. Stop fighting and begin working together toward a common goal. I told you, you need to, okay, you didn't think about that part now. You might not even thought about that part. When I said, hey, you got to learn how to feed both wolves. I said, okay, part of the story. Everybody got two wolves inside of them fighting each other. One, which wolf wins? The one you feed, right? So, and then I put forth, what if you feed them both? And if you're feeding them both and neither one of them hungry, at what point, then at that point, what happens to the fight? What happens to the internal conflict? They're not fighting. So if you got two wolves sitting together, neither one of them hungry, we ain't fighting, now we got to do something. Well, might as well start trying to work together. Hey, I ain't hungry, you ain't hungry, shit. All right? That's when the fight starts, that's part of the transformation. The fight stops. Okay, after the fight stops, then what? I'll tell you then what. The H. That's when the H comes in. The healing. Healing represents the integration phase where formerly conflicting aspects of self are reconciled. The fight stops. Both the shadow and the light aspects of personality become allies, teammates, in service of the authentic self and meaningful contributions. Did y'all catch that? Everybody running around talking about, oh, I want to be authentic. I want to be my authentic self. I want to embrace my authentic self. Well, what if I'm sitting up here telling you, God damn it, you ain't your authentic self unless you're embracing the shadow side. Unless you ain't feeding that dark wolf, you ain't being authentic. You out here masquerading. Anybody in the chat agree with that? Or am I off? Just type of one or something in there, you know. Type of one if you understand what I'm putting down. Type of two if I need to remix it a little bit. So, just to reiterate, growth, all right? The acronym of growth is GROWTH. Grounding, reflection, openness, wisdom seeking, transformation, then the healing. Y'all like that process? What y'all think about that process then? Does that sound reasonable? Done. One of Manly Hall's most compelling insights may have been, the thing that interests me, and it was like, is understanding of beauty as the emotional medicine. Beauty as the emotional medicine. And in the video, he talked about, he used a medieval metaphor about a cathedral that has, beautiful aesthetics inside, and how going into that cathedral, looking at those beautiful artworks, was providing emotional grounding that contemporary life was lacking at that time. The peasants entering a great cathedral during times of war and plague found the experience of great positiveness with which to meet small negatives around them in life. And he's talking about how the aesthetics that they encounter function in a way as therapy. That art in the cathedral was their emotional medicine. This is beauty moving in upon his own consciousness. The cathedral provided both transcendent meaning, something higher, bigger than myself, and immediate comfort, enabling individuals to bear suffering without being broken by it. So, having something, thinking of meaning, transcendent meaning, something higher than yourself, actually gives you the strength, emotional strength, to bear and make it through broken situations and hard times. Hall argues that modern individuals most consciously recreate this function through deliberate engagement with great art, music, literature, and natural beauty. Natural beauty, what is that? Go and sit outside somewhere. Go and sit at the beach watching water, watching some nature shit, Reading a good book, getting lost in a good book, putting on some headphones and zoning out and some music that you really enjoy. Sitting up there gazing at art and if you really into art and pictures and shit. Man, a lot of people, this ain't about astrology, but a lot of people, Pisces is astrologically speaking, can be the artist, right? And a lot of times when you hear people talk about Pisces energy, the word escape and illusions and stuff comes up, but but why am I saying that? Because that is put into, hey, when you're doing that, you're escaping the world. But what Manly Hall is putting forth is that when you do art and engage and all that, that's not escapism, but in all actuality, that's you engaging in emotional education. Huh? You sitting up there painting on something. You sitting up there doing something artistic. You sitting up in there zoning out on some music. You sitting up there, you know what I'm saying, watching, look at the beach, just watching sunset and all that shit. That is you engaging in emotional in education. Learning to recognize and respond to excellence, which gradually refines emotional discernment. I was just, before I went live, I was just in another live, and that emotional discernment actually came up. And provide an emotional discernment, and it also provides inner resources for navigating life's challenges. Huh? The science of beauty. Manly Hall insists that aesthetic development requires the same rigor as scientific inquiry. There is just as great a science in beauty as there is in any branch of skill. This means developing educated taste through exposure to the highest example of human creativity, achievement, rather than settling for mediocrity or allowing emotions to be shaped by whatever happens to be popular or readily available. Saying the cultivation of aesthetic judgment creates a crucial psychological function. It protects against what Hall calls emotionalizing that which is not good. By surrounding ourselves with meaningful beauty and excellence, we provide our emotional nature with worthy objects of attention and affection. Not everything deserves or is worth your attention or affection. Now, he also, we also live in a modern world. You know, Manly Hall was born in 1901. He died in like 1990. So, um, which was what, 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So, you know, how he put the frame that offers valuable insights for contemporary emotional challenges. His analysis of how negative, think about it, when we watch the news and all that, negative media consumption shapes emotional patterns, feels remarkably persistent. Manly's observations that emotions are hurt, sick, tired, and unhappy due to constant exposure to disturbing stimuli applies directly to our current information environment. Think about social media. Think about what we constantly bombarded with. His emphasis on personal responsibility for emotional development also counters the tendency to externalize emotional problems or wait for others to provide solutions. What that means? I feel this way because he made me feel that way. She made me feel that way. Right? The externalizing of emotional problems. And you're sitting around waiting for somebody else to do something about it. The individual looking for maturity of his own psychic life must really work at this problem. Manly Hall insists that recognizing that emotional growth requires here we go again, active engagement rather than passive consumption of therapeutic services. What good is going to therapy if you just go talk for that hour and after that hour you don't do nothing else? Where's the growth, GROWTH in that? Now, the approach that Manly Hall put forward also reflects limitations of his era and cultural positions. Right? He idealized of medieval religious life overlooks the oppressive and suffering characteristics that much had during that period, right? He also dismissed his dismissal of modern psychology while containing a valid, he has valid critiques of reductionist approach, but ignores significant advances in understanding of trauma, developmental patterns, and effective therapeutic interventions. Right? So if you listen to this video, take in mind, like that's what I'm saying, take in mind the dude that did die in 1990, and we have had more advances in mind and emotions and stuff like that since then, right? Another critique is his prescription of engagement with high culture, right? Engaging in music, arts, and all of that. Not everybody have access to that, right? And that's not the only primary solution to emotional problems. It fails to acknowledge how access to such resources depends on privilege and education on it. Many people struggle with emotional difficulties, may lack the cultural background, time, or resources necessary to engage in meaningful with classical art or literature. We got lives to live. People got bills to pay and shit like that, right? So his framework also doesn't adequately address how trauma, poverty, discrimination, and other systematic factors can complicate emotional development in ways that cannot be resolved simply by art education and leaning into creativity, right? Now, if I'm synthesize what Hall's insights with more A nuanced understanding of back to the two wolves metaphor suggests a model of emotional development that honors both the necessity for difficult emotions and the importance of cultivating positive qualities. Rather than viewing emotional growth as the victory over light, over darkness, we understand it as the development of consciousness, sophisticated enough to work skillfully with all aspects of human experience, right? Now, the dark wolf, commonly represented of anger, fear, grief, and the other challenging emotions, right? The dark wolf actually becomes a teacher rather than an enemy. When you approach the dark wolf or the with the kind of conscious attention, the dark emotions carry crucial information about our needs, boundaries, and values. They motivate necessary action and provide the energy for important change. The key is learning to receive their messages without being controlled by their intensity. Because the dark wolf can be very intense. Can you navigate the intensity? Right? But similarly, let's not forget, there's two wolves. The light wolf, the light wolf of compassion, hope, and love requires cultivation as well. To reach for the light wolf to reach its full potential as well, right? These qualities don't arise automatically, but they must be developed through what Hall Manley called emotional dedication. You got to dedicate yourself to a worthy purpose and have not only persistent but consistent engagement with that thing that you find worthy and purposeful. I.e., that would be when he was talking about art and beauty, right? But if you take art and beauty out and insert what you think is worthy and purposeful, right? That's how you develop the light wolf. Practical work involves learning to. This is what I know. A lot of people struggle with this. Learning to stay present. Learning to stay present in the moment. Be where you are. How many people in the chat can admit they struggle with presence? Are you where you are, or are you next week sometime right now mentally? Are you really listening to me? Are you currently present with what I'm saying? Or are you thinking about tomorrow? Wednesday. If you're thinking about tomorrow and Wednesday, you ain't present now. Let me tell you what that means, y'all. I'll give y'all an example. Personally, perfect. And it was my Pisces. Shout out to my Pisces brother. Right? And this is what this story, it really let me know presence was, right? So one time I went to the store and, I'm going through the store and I check out, right? And in the checkout line, I'm having a conversation. I get into this back and forth real quick with the checkout person. All right, I go get my car. I'm driving down the street. I'm way down the street, and I'm at the red light. Now I'm sitting at the red light, and all of a sudden I have a thought. Damn, was she flirting with me? I'm going out the store. I'm out way down the street, and all of a sudden I get the thought, was she flirting with me? But what's the problem with having that thought at the red light? I'm gone now. The moment's passed. And so I was talking to my brother, and I was telling him about that. And what's up, Delight? Um, um, I was talking to my brother about that, and he said, "You know why you didn't know if she was flirting with you or not? Because you wasn't present." I said, "What? What do you mean I wasn't present?" "Yeah, I was. I was having a conversation." He said, "No, you wasn't. You was having that conversation, but you was somewhere else mentally. That's why you ain't catching in the moment." Being present means being in the moment. And if I was in the moment and present, I would have picked it up and caught it right then and there. Now, here's a oh shit moment for y'all. How much shit are you missing out on that's right in front of your face because you're not currently present and in the moment? Ouch. Right? So the trick is both wolves are fed, but fed consciously. The dark wolf receives attention and understanding it needs to deliver its messages, while the light wolf is nourished through delicate cultivation of positive qualities and meaningful engagement with life. Meaningful engagement with life. What does that mean? When your eyes open, is your thought, damn, it's another day? Or, hot damn, it's another day? You know, even though I said the same thing, those two responses to the day is actually different. Damn, it's another day. Or hot damn, I get to, one sounds like excitement for life. The other one sounds like life is kicking their ass. This approach transforms the internal battleground into a classroom where every emotional experience becomes an opportunity for greater understanding and wisdom. Now, must I refresh your memory that our true state is that of a soul. And we come down to our true essence is soul, spirit. And in all actuality, we are spirit. The fool in the tarot deck coming off the cliff to be born in this physical space, walking off the cliff. But we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we are in the classroom for the soul. And what do you do in a classroom? You learn. You learn lessons. You learn to understand. And so when things happen to you, it's not for you to sit up there and cry, woe is me. It's for you to get curious and start asking yourself, what am I supposed to be learning from this situation? What am I supposed to be taking from this? Let me slow down, ground myself, reflect, be open, be willingness to seek, and transform this situation into a healing moment of understanding. And turn that understanding into wisdom in which you could pour down into others. And what do we call that? The alchemy of growth. Manly P. Hall's fundamental insights remain, they say a broke clock is right twice a day. So all of his thoughts, they're all relevant. The whole video is relevant. Emotional development requires the same kind of systematic attention that we give to intellectual professional development. Think about it. Football players. Do they just go play the game? No, they practice all week and then play the game. They practice. Athletes practice more than they actually play games. Anybody that does something great, they practice more than they actually do to perform it in front of people. Yeah, practice. Did I say practice? Yeah, I said practice. Not a game. Practice. Yeah, practice. But practice requires work. And I don't want to work. I want to go sit on this sofa, watch TV, and eat some bonbons. What? Shout out to Mental Reset. He said everybody wants to grow until it's time to grow. Right? So the contemporary crisis he identified a culture that stimulates emotional intensity. Think about it. It's a setup, y'all. Hey, y'all. Social media, movies, TV, all of that shit is set up to emotionally get you stimulated. And then when you up there and don't know what to do with emotions, you know what they tell you to do? Here, I got a pill for that. Here, take this. Yeah. By the way, y'all, if I said Mental Reset, that's the make sure y'all follow him, Brain Repair. Getting the school up together. Self. You'll be hearing about this soon. All right. And to be honest with y'all, I think that might be done. The pharmaceutical industry and the media and the media companies might be working together. Hey, I'm gonna pay you. I'm gonna pay you to give all these commercials, and I want you to pump up the volume when it comes to the negative emotional stimuli, and then we're gonna come in the back door with our pills. Because hey, we already know we ain't teach them how to deal with their emotions. So we already know they're gonna need something. They're gonna be looking for something. And that's the commercial you hear. Are you feeling tired? Yeah, I'm feeling tired and all of those symptoms because of what I was watching before you came on. It's a vicious game, y'all. So Manly Hall's solution was feeding emotions with beauty, meaning, and transcendent values, right? Transcendent values, what's that? Being connected to religion or something, and I can't do it because I'm gonna go to hell. So that he says that offers a pathway toward what we might call emotional sovereignty, right? Now, rather than being victims of our emotional reactions or having to suppress them entirely, he's putting forth that we can learn to work with both our shadow and our light qualities as sources of wisdom and strength. Basically, you want to walk around with both of your wolves proudly displayed. Proudly fed, proudly displayed. You know what I'm saying? Walking in the same direction. So when it comes back to the two wolves story, properly understood, right? The way they set up the story is that the two wolves are actually enemies. But the way I'm saying it is, in all actuality, the two wolves are complementary aspects of a complete human being, both serving essential functions and both require conscious attention. Growth occurs not through victory of one wolf over the other wolf, but through development of the awareness that can hold both with skillful compassion. What does that mean? You want to be standing calmly in between both wolves, petting them on the head. And when you say sit, they both sit. If you say that way, they both are working in tandem. This is the alchemy of Hall's point, right? Transformation of raw emotional energy into wisdom, beauty, and authentic character. It requires active engagement rather than passive hoping. Sustained practice rather than quick fixes. Oh, I just take this and I'll feel better. But while you taking prescriptions and all of that stuff, you're actually putting a band-aid on that emotional thing. You're not actually addressing the reason why that you feel that way and that symptom. You're not addressing it. I bet if you really go and address that emotional thing that's making you feel that way, whatever symptom that you got to take that pill for, you won't need that no more. You won't need that shit. You got all these people. You got people talking about, I want to feel whole. Hey, I'm looking for my other half. I'm looking for somebody who can complete me. Well, could I say some of the reason you don't feel whole is because you're starving one of the wolves. Some of the reason why you don't feel whole is because you're making the two wolves fight each other instead of feeding both of them and making them work together and integrating both, because you think the dark wolf is bad. Must I say love and light? How come there's no love and light, dark and shadowy? How come no people not what? Maybe I need to make that shirt. Dark and shadowy. Love and light. You think people you think that would trip people out? Dark and shadowy. Huh? What are you talking about? Yeah, embrace the shadow. Man, you crazy. Oh shit, right? You know, this line here, I said, it requires active engagement rather than passive hoping. That reminds me of a joke, right? Shout out because this is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Happened this weekend, 20 years ago, 2005. So they had a man, the flood was going, and they had a man at the house, and the neighbors was evacuating. And they asked the neighbors asked the man, hey, we leaving, we evacuating. You want to come with us? The man replied, no, the Lord will provide. The water started rising some more. A guy came by in one of them big Bigfoot trucks with the big wheels and all that. Hey, we leaving. You want to get in? No, the Lord will provide. People went on. Water went up a little bit more. Now some people coming by in the boat. Hey, man, we getting out. You coming? You want to get in the boat? No, the Lord will provide. Gets a little higher. Now the man sitting on his roof. Helicopter comes by. Hey, man, get on grab the ladder, get on. We gonna fly you out. No, the Lord will provide. The man drowns and he's unalived. And now he's sitting up there at the pearly gates and he's talking to the Lord. And he said, Lord, I thought you was going to provide. I had faith you was going to provide. And the Lord said, I sent you a car, a truck, a boat, and a helicopter. Hell, you didn't get on. What else you want me to do? So it requires active engagement rather than passive hoping. Hey, you got to get in the truck that I sent. You gotta climb the ladder that I sent over there. Not just sit up there and be like, oh no. And then wonder why things didn't turn out the way you wanted to turn out. So most people observe may not choose the path of conscious development. But those who do, not everybody chooses to grow. That's a free will choice to actually lean into growth, y'all. Not everybody's going to do it. Most people ain't going to do it. But those who do, right, combined with a more integrative understanding of human psychology, offers both the vision and the method of genuine emotional maturation. The two wolves can become allies, but only through patient work of conscious applied art of living well. The art of living well. You got to consciously work at that. It's not just given to you. In our current era of emotional turbulence and cultural fragmentation, the ancient wisdom integrated with contemporary understanding may be more necessary than ever. The path is demanding, but the alternative to not taking a path is remaining emotionally adolescent in an increasingly complex world. This shit ain't getting easy. It's far more costly to both individuals and society to do nothing. The choice as always remains. Will we feed wolves wisely or allow them to tear us apart through neglect and unconsciousness? The answer determines not only our personal well-being, but our capacity to contribute meaningfully to the healing of our world and ourselves, which is in desperate, dire need. Any questions? Any statements? Any observations? Any thoughts that came up in your mind as I went through this? Am I off? Agree? Disagree? What, you know? By the way, the name, if you want to listen to, if you want to listen to the video that I'm referring to, it's Manly P. Hall. Type in Manly P. Hall, how emotions can contribute to spiritual growth. Matter of fact, let me see. Manly P. Hall, how emotions can contribute to spiritual growth is the name of the video. Let me see. Y'all see that? So if you type that in, if you type that into YouTube, the video that I am speaking of will come up. Manly P. Hall, how emotions can contribute to spiritual growth. You know, one of the things that he talked about is how the adolescence from the age of 13 to 20, and in between that's when our emotions are really intensified, and lack of development in that during that time period has us as a society intellectually mature but emotionally immature. So that's why people, really, really smart people, and all that, you look at them and they got everything together, but then something emotional pop up, and then all hell goes to loose, breaks loose. That's that would be the reason. That would point to all of that. Mm. So yeah. That's what I wanted to talk about today, y'all. I really wasn't didn't have anything astrologically to talk about. Mm. Well, what I would talk about astrologically, y'all not interested in. Y'all wouldn't understand anyway. I'll tell you. I started looking at the. I was. Have y'all ever heard of a dial chart? A, a, a dial. So, basically, the dial is 300. It's a circle, 360 degrees. It's 360, but each section is broken down into, I think, 90 degrees. So when you look at your chart, right, all your fixed planets is going to be in one 90-degree section. The other one's going to be in another. The can so it's three. Pretty much the dial is broken down into three sections: cardinal, mutable, fixed, and instead of, it's broken down and all that, right? All the fixed stuff gonna be over here, all the mutable stuff are gonna be over here, and all the. So it's a different way of looking at it, right? But that the dial has something to do with midpoints. I know, I know. This is y'all probably ain't never heard none of this shit when it comes to astrology. I'm way in the weeds, y'all. Right? What's midpoints? Has in a midpoint is all right. Say you got say you got Saturn here, and you got, I don't know, pick a planet, the moon over here. All right. So you got so you got Saturn here, and you got the moon here, right? Well, a midpoint would be whatever degree this is at, the midpoint between those two energies will be somewhere right here, right? And when something gets to that point right there, even though nothing is there, the midpoint, this a Saturn moon energy is created right here, and when something hits that point, boom, it's gonna have a Saturn moon interplay with that planet. Is that too much, yeah? Too much. Sure. Y'all want to see before I go, I'll show you. You want to see what a dial look like? I'll show you a dial. What the dial look like with today's energy, right? So this is the current, this is where everything's at right now, currently. Right? Moon, Sagittarius, right? Uh, Mars, and Libra, Sun. You see all that? So cardinal, 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 right? So when I go to the dial, boom, see, the sun, the moon is in Sagittarius, the sun is in Pisces. I mean Virgo. See how they're on the same side of the dial? But if I go to the wheel, right, they square. They square here, but on the dial, same thing. They're right here to each other. Right? So 0 to 30, that's cardinal. You see, look, Jupiter's in Cancer. Mars is in Libra. Look where they're at. 0 to 30 is cardinal. 30 to 60 would be fixed. And 60 back up here would be mutable. See how I said 3 sections? So if it was boom, 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 and boom, boom. See? And so, and then when you move this around, right, that's when your midpoints. So right here is the midpoint between, you see, Pluto, well, let me see, Pluto and Chiron. Pluto, Chiron midpoint is right here. But also the ascendant and Mars, the ascendant and Mars right here, there's also the midpoint here. So if something comes around and if this was somebody's chart, this is actually where everything currently at. And if I had somebody's chart in here, right, and they had something at this point, boom, something might be getting triggered. So, something with Mars ascendant, right? And ascendant has something to do with the body or whatever. And so if I put Mars there with the body, something Mars like what could that mean? That could mean somebody could get cut in the leg, stump their foot on something. You know what I'm saying? And then look, Chiron, Pluto, hey, Chiron, hurt, Pluto, this shit was deep. A deep cut. A deep cut that hurt the body. You see what I'm saying? Is that too much of? Yeah, so when it comes to this, you ever seen the dial, Brenda? You ever seen the dial? I know you've been in this right. You ever seen the dial? You ever heard of dial or midpoints? Yeah. Uh, I like working with the traditional shit, but lately I kind of been looking at other things like Like I'm saying, I never really worked with midpoints. Be honest with you, be totally honest with y'all. In a regular reading, unless somebody's like coming back multiple times or something, we'll never get to that type of information. We never really get to that type of information because most people, they ain't never really looked at their chart and all that shit. So somebody really got to be up on their shit and all that shit to really, be wanting to look at some midpoint shit and all that. Or, unless I'm looking at it and just want to warn you about some shit that might be coming up. But yeah. And spicy, Gene don't. The person in the live today, the reason he's making that statement about man, nobody really knows and all that stuff. He, they don't know nothing about Fadaria. They don't know nothing about zodiacal relation. They don't know nothing about perfection, right? So, you know, yeah, you can make that statement if you ain't seen, right? But you I'll say this: I can't, I can't tell you, I can't tell you. I can see some shit coming up. I can see an event come up. I can see around where the subject gonna be about and all that shit. But how that shit play out, he right. I can't see that. I'd never know because it's always a surprise. It's always surprising too. Man, I didn't really think it was gonna show up like that, but goddamn, there it is. So, yeah. Oh, okay. What would he say? I know it is. I don't know nothing about solar arc direct. If I solar arc direct this chart and then see the shit, boom, boom. Hey, did something happen that day? None of that. Yeah. Oh, I thought you couldn't. So, anywho, 12:56. I thank y'all for rocking with me. It's time for lunch. Hopefully, y'all got it. Hopefully, some of them thoughts about Manly P. Hall resonated. Hopefully, y'all got something from there. And thank you for Brenda for stopping through. Thank you, Spicy, for always being here. And everybody else, by the way, if you leave a comment and all of that, I'll respond. So thank y'all. Know thyself, balance your energy.